freaking go. I'm looking at all of you right now. I owe you a massive apology. LSU softball. What happened over the weekend deserves an entire live stream, but we're going to talk football, basketball. Obviously, the big topic du jour is baseball. Do they already have a national seed locked in? I believe that they do, and I'll tell you why coming up. But I am a huge Bettarina fan. Huge. I have sung her praises all year long. And what did I do? I defended her day in, day out. I am not Jenny Finch or Kat Osterman. I cannot break down every last little thing you need to know about softball. Okay? I barely know what a rise ball is. Okay? And a lot of you might not know what that is at all. The truth, though, is a few years ago on your home field, you lost to UL Lafayette. I brushed that off as small sample size. And then this happened versus Southeastern. You get outplayed. It wasn't that Southeastern got lucky. You got outplayed. You got brutally outplayed. And in the two games that Southeastern lost to Nebraska, they ended up losing by a combined score of 22-1. Okay, baseball, softball, it's all wacky. It is all wacky. But the truth is, this was the ugliest weekend of the Bettarina tenure. Now, last year, I defended her tooth and nail because you ran into a buzzsaw. You played the best pitcher in the country versus Stanford. You won game one and almost upset your way to the College World Series. And Bettarina is a very good coach. She, in my mind, just based on the results that LSU softball has had over the years, as you can see, we host a bunch of regionals. We've been to the College World Series 3 consecutive years. But I've got to shout out two people in particular. Remember, we're doing a Jamar Chase jersey autograph giveaway at the end of the month of May. But the real benefit of being a PHL Patreon is that we have some of the most educated viewers on all these other sports. Okay, and I know you're here for football coverage, but we have two people in our Discord who constantly have said to me, Carter, they weren't like being rude about it, but they're like, Carter, we understand you're a Bettarina fan. I don't trust her. And that is Skipper and that is Sherry Berry. All right. They have consistently said, Carter, don't put the cart before the horse. And I should have listened. They sit and they actually watch every pitch of every game, every single pitch of every game. I should have listened. I became too much of LSU fanboy. I ignored and just said, hey, it's just small sample size. We've got ourselves a really good team. We started the season undefeated 23-0 last year, defeating number 1 Texas, and then falling off the face of the earth. This year we had a good RPI and all that mumbo jumbo. The bottom line is what happened this weekend is unacceptable. And now we have got to have an honest conversation regarding the single biggest thing an athletic department does every single season, which is make a decision on if you want to move forward with the head coach. Okay? I am going to dig my heels in even deeper, and it might make me look even dumber, but I believe Bettarina should stay. You had the freshman of the year. A lot of people made a big deal about her comments last night about, well, you shouldn't have said what you said about the program moving forward when we choked the way that we choked this weekend. No, I'm okay. I'm okay with her saying that because there were some strengths on this team. But the bottom line, and I feel for Coffee, I feel for everybody on that team, we choked. And I don't like choking. I just don't like it. And the second thing is we're in a weird limbo where there are a lot of people that do care about LSU softball. But it's also one of those things where we are paying Beth Torina a lot of money. We gave her the extension, all that stuff. Do we really want to do this where we get rid of her and then we really got to go out there and pay for a new staff in a non-revenue generating sport? All right. Beth Torina is not bad. I think it would be stupid for anyone to say that she is bad or that she sucks at her job. She is legitimately, just based on the resume that you see on the screen right now, a top 10 coach in the sport. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But I do think you need to run it back, as crazy as it sounds. And it's going to be one of the harshest truths that I have to look at myself in the mirror and say, Carter, you were wrong. And you might be wrong about digging your heels in and keeping Beth Torina around. The truth, though, is money is involved in this. And I'm fine with running it back. I really am. But what you won't see me do next year is tweet nonstop about Beth Torina being a good coach. Because she is a good coach, but I was very big on how excited I was about this team making a postseason run. Okay. So there you go. Now, I want to get into the specifics about what happened this weekend, and I promise we'll get into LSU baseball. Okay. Cliff says keep Beth Torina. AP says it is Beth Torina's fault. Okay. Brennan says it is unacceptable to lose in a regional at home to Southeastern and have it happen twice, and this being the second time in 3 years you lost to an in-state rival, and then that in-state rival get beat 22-1 by Nebraska. Okay, so Hakeem says you can't lose at home in your own regional consistently. It's not just that they've lost; it's who they've lost to. All right. This will be probably the last big softball stream for a while. How it happened, though, is what really sucks. Okay, and that's where things get murky for Beth Torina, is how all of this went down. Okay, so the first thing is, yes, Southeastern got boat raced in their other games. Now, I do give LSU credit. They did beat UConn comfortably, if you will. But there were so many self-inflicted wounds. The scores look like the games were very close. The first one was close. All right. You got unlucky in that final inning. A walk-off home run missed by 2 feet. The third baseman made a ridiculous catch in the game that would have tied it. But the second game is where it's really infuriating. Your backs are against the wall, and the only reason you're in that game is their pitcher dropped the most comfortable fair ball, the most routine catch of all time when they were winning 4-1, and that drop cost them 3 runs. All right. And then later you got 2 more runs after the first baseman could not catch the ball. And then they scored a bunch of runs by not hitting the ball at all. You played bad. It wasn't just bad luck. You went out there and played terribly. All right. Softball is random, small sample size, all that stuff. There is something about our mentality in these big spots. We choked. We had the yips. And anyone that has been around softball, it is very common, in particular in softball. Now, pressure cracks diamonds in every sport. Okay. You see it in March Madness. You see it in particular in college sports, not as much in the pros, but pressure gets everyone. I don't know if I've ever seen a sport where pressure crumbles athletes like softball. I think there's a lot of different reasons as to why that is, because softball does move faster. When the ball is actually in play, everything is moving so fast. And the second thing is softball environments are very hostile, right? the games are played on home fields. It can get very loud. The fans are really on top of you in that sport, where in other sports, things are a little bit more spread out. Basketball postseason games, they're played on neutral courts. Fans aren't courtside. It is a little bit different, okay? But the truth is, we crumbled. And Beth, I don't think will be let go. I just don't, okay? I wouldn't let her go either, which is crazy to say. But I do think you need to keep her, okay? Let's go to Crazy Cajun Dave. He says, I don't think you're going to get good ROI if you get rid of her. Let's go to Hakeem. They wore out their pitching staff. Berzon. I don't know. I'm not sharp enough in softball to know pitch counts or anything like that. That is one downside of softball. If you have a dominant pitcher, you really can't just go all the way. It's kind of like the hockey goalie, if you will. But yeah, I don't know. I won't. Once again, that's why I feel a little uncomfortable talking about something I don't watch every single day. Okay, but I will also say I don't think the team didn't play hard. I'll tell you that is that's one thing, but that's a bare minimum. They did play scared. They did play timid. All right, Sherry Berry and Skipper. Once again, they actually do sit down and watch every pitch of every game. They said, Carter, it's going to happen. They called it. They called it, and I did not listen. So I owe those two in particular an apology. They deserve all the credit in the world. I owe an apology for gassing up Beth Terrain. That's my apology for everyone that's just now creeping in here. But a very happy Sunday to each and every one of you. Beth, if you're watching this, I'm still in your corner. But I've called the Uber to take me home. Okay. I'm thinking about leaving the party. Thinking about it. Now, we are one day closer to the best postseason in all of sports, which is baseball, college baseball, regional play. The big question that everybody has, will LSU get that coveted national seat? The answer to that is yes. Be honest with yourself. There is a huge incentive for college baseball to have LSU, one of the needle moving programs, to have as good of a position to get to the College World Series. Everybody that has any clue about college baseball buzz, whether it be ESPN or the Jello Shot people, they want LSU at home in Baton Rouge for regional play. Now, for those that are not familiar, college baseball tournaments work like the NCAA basketball tournament in that they have 64 teams that make it. Now, there's no play-in, but there's 64 teams that make it. And there are two different levels of seeding, okay? You want to be in the top 16 to get a regional seed. And everybody plays their little 4-team regional. It's if you avoid losing twice, you move on, to simply explain it. But then you have the super regional, where those 16 teams move on to the final 16, and a super regional host gets that home field advantage for that 3-game series. The only way you can guarantee home field in a super regional is by getting a top 8 national seed. All right, so you want to be in that top 8. LSU was the number 1 ranked team in the country going into this weekend series versus South Carolina. That does not mean that they were number one in the eyes of the NCAA. There's RPI, BPI, LMFAO. There's all these different rankings now. Okay. But if you were the number one team and you won a best 2 out of 3 series on the road in the SEC, which is one of the hardest things to do, even though South Carolina sucks, you should have a top 8 national seed locked up, no matter what happens in Hoover this weekend. So LSU will move on and play in the SEC tournament. They will play Friday night in Hoover. And if they win a game there, they are no doubt a lock for a national seed. They still should be a lock for a national seed, in my humble opinion. It just is simple logic. If you are consistently in the top 10 all year, and over the past month, they have comfortably been in the top 7, and into the final weekend of the year, you are the number one team. You win an SEC series on the road. To me, SEC tournament action shouldn't mean really anything at all. I think it should matter more in basketball than it does in baseball. But the baseball SEC tournament is now single elimination. So it is nothing like how baseball is played. Every single baseball college situation is determined by you avoiding losing 2 games. So you are considered a winner if you win a best 2 out of 3. You won that SEC series. In the regionals and super regionals, if you avoid losing 2 games, you move on. When you get to the College World Series, if you avoid losing 2 games, you move on. Okay? So I have heard others bring up some doubt about LSU being a top 8 national seed because while they were the number one team going into this weekend, it was close. It was very close. It wasn't like they were a distant number one. Then, you had Texas, Arkansas was in that mix, Georgia was in that mix, Florida State and Clemson have had good seasons. Obviously, this team isn't close to a national seed, but they're comfortably one of the 16 best teams. Tennessee is floating around there. I just don't think that there are 8 teams better than LSU. They deserve the national seed. Okay. Now, is it locked up? I would say I would give it about a 60, not 60, that's low. I would say it's a 98% chance that they have a national seed in the top 8 locked up. Okay. And there are many that don't like the SEC tournament at all. All right. And I totally understand that as well. Okay. Now, next thing. I do want to talk some football. It is so important you join our PHL Patreon. You're about to see a spot for it in just a second. We're giving out a Jamar Chase jersey at the end of this month. I'm really excited about that. I'm tired of it being in my collection. I want to gift it to somebody else. I'm not tired of it. I actually like it a lot. So I released a 20-plus minute film study on Bo Bentley, who will more than likely be the quarterback target for the class of 2026. 4-star, top 100 recruit from the state of Texas. Soccer and lacrosse background. So if you have that kind of background, that means you can run. That means you're a multi-sport athlete, which he is. He is uber athletic, right? If I were to compare him to someone, like the most highest end comparison I would give him is like Baker Mayfield. But I don't know if he's that level of a player. Baker Mayfield's a top 10 NFL quarterback. I think he has a power run style that is kind of Jackson Darty, if you will, in that his offense really opened up a lot of things for him. But his athleticism is redunculous. Pretty good arm. Unfreaking believable power. He is unbelievably quick, right? He can juke you out of a phone booth. And throwing on the run in a scramble situation, he is deadly. He is about as good as you will see throwing on the run in terms of putting the ball where it needs to be. Now, in particular, rollouts aren't his specialty, like design rollouts. That's where he's had some issues. But man, the dude can freaking whip that ball on the run. They were a 16-0 state championship team at Salina. Um, you always get into what is a level of competition type of debates. The only thing is I do weigh your senior high school tape a little bit more heavily when you are only a one-year starter in high school. Okay, most high school top 100 or just four-star or better quarterbacks, they start 3 years of high school football. He has only started one, and this will be his second coming up his senior year of high school. I like him, as you can tell. I do think he is really good, and I do think that would be a pretty nice quarterback to have committed. I also think that level of a quarterback, you don't have to worry too much about Alabama swooping in and giving him a generational back. Like, it's not like this is that type of player where everybody's going to try and get him at the finish line. Okay. But he's good. He is good. I also just want to put that out there. This means nothing in the grand scheme of things. Nothing. But it is something. Their offense is one of the funnest offenses I have ever seen a high school run. All right. Normally, when you think fun high school offense, you think, 5 wide, spread them out, all that stuff. What made their offense ridiculously fun to watch was the diversity in their formations. They do so many different things. And they do something I would like to see LSU do, which is get under center. They do some of that, not a lot of it. Okay. It is sexy. It is very, very, very sexy. Okay. So I'm a Bo Bentley believer. I am a believer. Okay. Now, you can go check it out. Go look at your join our Patreon. You get 20 minutes of my unfiltered film study. And a little bit later in the week, or if he does commit, I was able to track down some of his full games. And a full game will give you an overall better view on a recruit instead of like a well-edited highlight tape, because you only get the good. You only get the good. Okay. There was, and this has happened a few times. I had to cut a highlight tape for someone recently. And man, it does change things. Okay. It does change things. We said to Brian. Everybody welcome Brian to the channel. Hey, what about Miss Little Bro? What year does he come out? Brian, thank you for your super chat. I love the photo as well. But just clarify what you want me to answer. Okay. Let's go to Randy with the Hoover run. Everybody welcome Randy to the channel. Good to see you. I don't know if that's Randy to the right or left. Randy says our floor is a 5 seed. Cliff agrees. Okay. Oh, what about Nuss Little Bro? Okay, let's have a conversation about Colton Nussmeyer. All right. I've gotten to know a little bit about him. Okay. More I think he's got more juice as a runner. I also think early in his athletic career, there were some that felt he was a better baseball player than he was a football player. But it does look like football is going to be the thing. It is just something of note. Top 100 high school quarterback in the state of Louisiana. Okay. Now, this does not factor in the Bo Bentley conversation because Bo Bentley is a class of 2026 quarterback. I will say there are always conversations about 2027s reclassifying to 2026. That could happen here. Now, I will explain why I think that could happen. The first is that kids in the same recruiting class do not like to commit to the same school at the quarterback position. All right. So let's look at the most recent example of a high profile school bringing in two top 15 quarterbacks in the same class. It almost happened with Georgia recently. They had the starter at Nebraska who thinks he's Patrick Mahomes. And then they had Ryan Puglisi, who had really good high school tape, and some felt were better than the Mahomes clone. They ended up not going in the same class. They didn't. Nebraska stepped up, and the kid's son, Raiola, played for Nebraska. And I remember him for the Lions, big number 53. And yeah, so it's rare. So let's just say this Bo Bentley thing doesn't work out. Well, LSU could go to 3 different quarterbacks in the class of 2027 and say, look, we need one of you to reclass and be our quarterback for the class of 2026. Now, I don't know how the whole reclassification process happens, but that did happen recently with LSU. Colin Hurley was a class of 2025 recruit. He moved up to the class of 2024. And that allowed LSU to fully go all in on Bryce Underwood. And it didn't work out. So there are 3 different quarterbacks in the class of 2027 that deserve deep conversation as a quarterback for LSU in that class. All right. And we'll talk about all 3 of them coming up right after this. Now, please, if you haven't already, please go follow me on Twitter at Carter the Power, all that good stuff, because I do believe the 2027 quarterback class could be special for LSU.
Let's go!
On a journey together with Zion Imaging, I want you to see this experience up close. And me as a wedding and event DJ, I watched how everybody had so much fun with Zion Imaging. And a big reason for their success is the team. Yes, Jaron Thomas and his family started this off as a passion project, and they have one simple goal in mind: taking your event to the next level. Whether it's a wedding, reunion, quinceañera, school, or corporate event, Zion Imaging is all about family-friendly fun. And I gotta show you on this tour the high-level technology that quickly sends your video session to your phone, whether it's iPhone or Android. Yes, it's the Zion Imaging 360 spin booth experience, serving North Texas, North Louisiana, South Arkansas, Orlando, and more. Give us a call, 318-469-4265. Check us out on Facebook or book us at Zion Imaging, XYANimaging.com. Alrighty, don't forget, PHL Patreon, you should join. So Elijah Haven is going to be the quarterback that everybody wants in this class, and I totally get it. Right in Baton Rouge's backyard, Dunham High School, 6'4", 205. He's a 4-star per on 3, but nationally 10 ranked quarterback Get another super chat here. What is this? Senor Tiger. I beat Carter in beer pong. I don't know who this is. I think I might know who this is, but I won't dox you. We do have a bunch. I do have a lot of people texting saying they're tuning in tonight. That's good. We are months away from the start of football season. I want to shout out my guy Jay Ward watching. He texted me. My buddy B. His name is also Blake. I'll just say Blake. Not Rufino, because we all know I hate that guy. But friend of the show, Blake. Also, since we're on the topic, I do want to announce we got Matthew Brune coming back on the show Tuesday night. Me and Brune. I've never met Brune before, but he was on before and killed it, so we brought him back. Elijah Haven will be the big quarterback for that crop. But then you see Colton Nussmeier right here. So Colton Nussmeier, 6'3", 175. He has some serious elasticity to his arm. Bro can fling it. Okay. Obviously, take a look. TCU, SMU, Baylor, a lot of Texas schools. And could I see him eventually being the quarterback of this class? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Now, this is where it gets spicy. Peyton Houston. All right. Let me just go on a little rant right here about Peyton Houston, if you guys don't mind. Top 100 quarterback at 5'10", 200 pounds. Texas. All right. Texas is after him. Y'all, I'm just going to say it. Peyton Houston can play. He can flat out play. Now, if I had my pick of those three, I would go probably with Haven. But I don't think when watching these quarterbacks, and I do it every year, I try my best to evaluate all the quarterbacks. So I did think Bryce Underwood was a gap from everyone else that I watch. It wasn't just recruiting rankings. All right. A few years ago, when I was doing radio in South Carolina, I watched a lot of Cade Klubnik, and I said, this guy will eventually be the number one quarterback in the crop. Turned out he was the number one quarterback in the crop. Okay. So I really try and find full games, whether on YouTube or Huddle or wherever, and I try and figure out who the best quarterback is. This is the class of 2027. So this is a few recruiting classes from now. But quarterbacks, you do have to scout a little bit earlier because they do commit a little bit earlier. I have only watched highlights. So I've not dug through and found the bad reps or anything like that. Peyton Houston, the gap between Elijah Haven and the others, I just don't think it is as wide as some would think, right? As the 6'3", 5-star compared to Elijah Peyton Houston. He's good. Now, here's the thing about Texas recruiting him. Steve Sarkisian knows QBs, don't you think? And on top of that, they have done a good job of attacking Louisiana. We've talked about that quite a few times. All right. So there you go. And by the way, I was joking. I love Blake and I talk every day. Okay. But yeah, I know I was joking, Randy, but I just want that to be known. I don't want anyone to think I'm starting a media beef with someone who I talk to for like literally every day. But I want that to be known as far as the class of 2027 is concerned when it comes to QBs. To the great super chat from Brian, because it is a question that you probably need to answer. I know your main focus is getting Bo Bentley on board, but what do you want to do with that? Just based on what I've watched, you could tell I really liked what I saw from Peyton. I really did. But it is nice to have in the state of Louisiana some really good quarterback recruits. This is something that just does not happen. It just does not happen. Go look historically. There's just not that many Louisiana top 100 recruits. You had Walker Howard, sure. Then you could go back to 2006 with Ryan Perlin. There's a few others mixed in there. Brandon Harris is in that mix. The young man who was very injured and went to TCU, played with Terrace Marshall at Parkway. His name slips my mind. He was a top 100 quarterback, and there's a few others. This has not been the most fruitful position for LSU in state, which is fine because you only need one of them. Okay. So I really, really think because there's so many that are digging their heels in on Elijah Haven, who's good. Obviously, he's good. But don't let the size fool you. All right. Something else, and it is just coincidence in my mind. But Bo Bentley is like 6'1", 6'2". LSU's had a run after Jaden here of a smaller QB room, right? It's mostly these 6 foot, 6'1" guys. It's just something. All right. Yeah. TJ Finley. He was just a 3-star though. But yeah, to that point, there's not really a whole lot of elite quarterback recruits. Now, it is interesting that the big story on Twitter this weekend was Chandler Fields, who's a quarterback at Destrehan, I believe. He had a viral throw, and I mean, it was a dot. And he didn't have a recruiting profile, and everybody's like, wait, who the hell is this QB? So it is strange because so many of the best quarterbacks honestly do come from the same states, right? Texas and California. Those are the two big QB producers. And then obviously there's some from Georgia, some from Florida, some from Utah, Arizona as well. Caleb Williams from DC. I mean, it is kind of random, but they mostly do come from the same states. And I do think there is a bias towards those quarterbacks that come from those states. And it would make sense, right? It makes sense. Let's see. Let's go to Donald. Who do we want more? I would guess Haven at this point, but I didn't think it's close. I would probably lean towards the one that is the one that wants to commit at this point. I mean, I just think for me, and I know I'll get a lot of messages on this after the fact. I could understand LSU being a little patient with this, but they are recruiting. In particular, Haven and Nuss. But dude, that Houston Evangel man. Evangel has a history of their recruits being underrated. All right. From Jacob Hester to Jared Cornelius. That list goes on and on. Cliff says, I bet you've noticed that Sanders is doing better than Dylan Gabriel at Browns camp. We're not going to turn this into a Shador Sanders convo. Now, if you want to talk some Tyler, what the shuck? I am down to talk some Tyler. What the shuck is going on here? But I'm super excited. But yes, Blake Rafiki, I would tune in. I tune into a lot of his baseball post games. I don't comment, but I just listen. All right. What is the next thing? I don't want to just talk recruiting. Let's see. I've said like every Sunday we're going to dive deep on a position group. It is interesting that PFF put out a linebackers to watch list. And the only school with two of them was LSU. It was Whit Weeks, obviously, and then Harold Perkins. Now, if that were to happen, and let's just say that PFF is right on their linebackers to watch list, and those two actually do come through, it's going to be hard seeing LSU not be at least a fringe college football playoff team. It is going to be very hard. And this is where I think a lot of fans should be in terms of where LSU is as a program overall. The talent on this team is good. LSU is recruited well. And we can get into a debate about asset allocation, transfer portal. We should have done this and brought this guy in. And yeah, of course, there's a lot of that. That's why they doubled Austin Thomas's salary recently, because it's becoming a more complex issue, especially with revenue sharing upcoming. But this team has a lot of good football players on it. All right. And I know that's like the most vague way of putting it, but I understand it would be boring and very dated. You can go back and listen to these streams leading into next year. This team just did not have enough good defensive players on it for it to be successful. And we can get down into the scheme and the nitty-gritty of all that stuff. We just did not have enough good football players. We just did not. And it's okay to admit that. Last year's roster was the worst roster in my mind of the Brian Kelly era, which is crazy to say. Okay. But a lot of it was because we did not attack the portal, and a few things that we thought were going to come through just did not. So we need these transfers to come in and do well. Not all of them are going to do well. But because you've gotten so many of these transfers, we at the very least can say two of them will be stars. If you're just playing the averages, two of these transfers you're bringing in that all the other schools are recruiting. All right, we're talking about other Power 4 schools we're recruiting. I've gotten to know a good bit about Jack Pyburn's recruitment in particular. He was heavily pursued. Josh Thompson. There's crystal balls to Tennessee. Okay. Very good program. Mansour Delane was thinking about the NFL draft, not just other programs. So not all of these guys are going to hit. Some of them will be disasters compared to expectations. But since you've brought in so many, some of them are going to be good. That makes me excited. Let's go to Alexander. Do you think Perk goes back inside on downs? They have a nickel in. And the Freddie follows up. Harold Perkins needs to come off the bench. Y'all, coming off the bench on the defensive side of the football in particular, is not a bad thing. It is not a bad thing. Okay. Did you know on the famous 2011 LSU team, the greatest LSU defense in my mind of all time, the guy who tied for the lead on the team with pick sixes came off the bench, and his name was Ron Brooks. And I'm glad to call Ron a friend of mine. I can call Ron right now. He'd probably pick up. I've not talked to him in a while, but he's been on the show before. We've helped him win a car contest. Ron Brooks came off the bench. He was the dime. All right. It is okay to come off the bench. It is not the end of the world to come off the bench. Who moved the needle? Nuggets Thunder. Alex Caruso, defensive stopper, off the freaking bench. You can be a needle mover off the bench. It is perfectly fine. So, the idea that you need Harold Perkins to be an every down player. Because see Brandon say, Freddie, what are you talking about? There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely, positively, nothing is wrong about Harold Perkins coming off the bench. You do not need to force him into playing every down. If you want to use him situationally, do that if you think it's best for the defense. But where LSU has had some issues, it was shoehorning him into a spot where he's a special talent. We got to have him on the field for every single down. This would be the simple question I would ask. All right. It's just a simple one. And this isn't really me putting blame on Harold Perkins for the entire defense being bad. Okay. The Dolphins did not have a good defense last year. That does not mean Jalen Ramsey's not good. Okay. Defense is very collaborative. Very, very, very collaborative. Almost everything in football is very collaborative. But just answer this question. Was the defense for LSU under the Brian Kelly era, has it been better with Harold Perkins being an every down player? Or has it been worse with Harold Perkins being an every down player? And the answer is the latter and not the former. Now, that does not mean Harold Perkins was the reason the LSU defense was bad. A lot of it is Matt House, obviously. A lot of it was Blake Baker having an up and down first year. A lot of it was Major Burns and Sage Ryan and a defensive tackle room that wasn't where it needed to be. A lot of transition, defensive line coaches, all those different things, okay? So some of this is trying to finagle where is the best spot for Harold Perkins to be as an every down player. So it's tough. It's really, really, really tough. It's not an easy question to answer. It's not. I think people can be a little cumbersome when you get into the conversation of every down players on the defensive side of the football. The offensive game has changed so much that it's tough for really anybody to be an every down player. Some guys can do it, right? Fred Warners do exist. Patrick Queens do exist. There are people that could do it, okay? But it's hard. It's really, really hard to be an every down player in the modern football game, especially if you are a second level defender. Okay. Let's go to Alexander. I feel like I could trust Perk as one of the two linebackers more than West weeks. That's about where I am. Okay. I would prefer to see what a Harold Perkins Whit Weeks linebacker duo looks like compared to Harold Perkins essentially playing the star, the nickel, the money, whatever you want to call that third linebacker DB in your base alignment. I just don't think that's where I would be. In particular versus Clemson, I do not think that would be a good matchup for LSU. I just don't. I think Harold Perkins' best role is as a situational second and long and third and long player. That's just how I feel. That doesn't mean he's bad, because that's what he did versus Ole Miss. That's what he did versus Mississippi State. That's what he did versus Auburn. And then the snap counts continued to rise, and he continued to have good games. But, when people remind me of that great true freshman season, what happened at the end of that year? Well, he was basically an every down player versus Georgia and A&M, and they ran all over us. Now, it wasn't just him, like I've said, okay? But there's ways you can work around it, right? There's weaknesses you can attack, okay? Jared, thank you for the super chat. We really appreciate you, man. If Perk was 6'4", 6'6", and added 15 pounds, he would be a power forward. No, I'm kidding. He'd be a tight end or a running back or receiver. It's not many 6'6" football players. But I get what you're saying. If he was a little bit bigger, he would be Micah Parsons. I would agree. If he were to come out as an NFL edge rusher, he would be one of the lowest percentile weights of an edge rusher in NFL draft history. So that's why, it's tough to put him somewhere, because he's not a DB either. All right. So his body is best suited to be an off-ball linebacker. And there's still, and I contend this, once again, when it comes to being a high school football prospect, Harold Perkins still has by far the highest grade I've ever given any high school prospect on Patreon. He really is like that special of a talent. But he also is a tweener. Tweeners happen. But none of this to say is to say that he's bad, right? But if every conversation is how do we use him, that's always been the conversation. If every convo it regards how do you use him, then how can you structure your defense if you're trying to figure out, well, what is the best role for this one guy? It's hard. Now, to H-Town's point, I do think Harold Perkins is surrounded by the best supporting cast he has had since 2022, where he was elite, because that's part of it as well. We underrate how much BJ Ojulari being on the field helped Harold Perkins out. You go back to one of the big plays of that first real Perk game versus Mississippi State, game 3. They actually put Ojulari and Perk on the same side. It was in the red zone, and they had a big sack. Okay. Big sack. Now, to Jared Super Chat, it's a pretty good point. What if we don't need Harold Perkins to be a superstar? Because in 2022, we needed him to be a superstar. I don't know if we beat Alabama. I don't know if we beat Auburn. I don't know if we beat Mississippi State. I don't know if we beat Arkansas. We definitely don't beat Arkansas. Arkansas wins that game. But then that Ole Miss game where he was phenomenal. We ended up blowing him out, so that one's a little bit different. But now is when you really size up this LSU defense. Maybe him being a stud, because we lack so much talent on last year's defense. We needed him to be a superstar. Now we don't need him to be that as he comes off this injury. So, it's going to be a talking point until the start of the season, and we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I'll say this: a very prominent former player told me that Harold Perkins should be a running back. Prominent LSU player. Who would know what a good running back looks like? Let's go to Jordan Jackson. Man, that is a great headshot. Holy hell. Jordan, forget the question. Tell me what to do with the S&P 500, bro. Dear Lord. I've always thought Perkins would best fit as a box safety, Cam Chancellor type of position. I think that star position will get him closer to that. All right. So I get this comment a lot, and it is a very good comment, because if you were to compare Harold Perkins' body type, it's closer to that of a Jamal Adams than it is a Danielle Hunter. Okay, both of those guys are athletic freaks. Both have had very successful and profitable NFL careers, but both are different players. Okay, and Harold Perkins has done more Danielle Hunter type of things than Jamal Adams. Okay, now let's bring in another one of, to me, one of the more underrated athletes of this era, which is Dwight Howard. I think a lot of you know Dwight Howard from the NBA. Okay. Dwight Howard is one of the best basketball players I've ever seen. It was a shame he was not an NBA 75 guy. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I've seen Dwight play in person. The dude is an absolute freak. Absolute freak. But what happened to Dwight Howard? Well, he got older, and Steph Curry came around, and the three space out era was here. And guys like Dwight Howard just aren't around as much anymore. Now, there's so many lob post guys, and, he still had a good career after that. It's just those guys just aren't the prominent guys. So Dwight Howard was a victim of the era shifting. Another victim is Jamal Adams and Cam Chancellor types. Because what happened was Pete Carroll came around, created the Legion of Boom defense, and they played a lot of middle of the field close coverage, which means a safety would be in the box, and they would have Earl Thomas playing the deep safety position. All right, it was a lot of cover three. What happened, though, over the past couple of years is the box safety is no longer a thing. Now, are safeties in the box some of the time? Yes. Do a lot of coverages shift into middle of the field close coverages? Yes. But most defenses base out of too high now, which means there are two deep safeties. Well, there are two deep safeties. There's not a box safety anymore per se. Now, this is a very simplified definition. I am not, Brian Baldinger here telling you all this stuff. A lot of you are privy to this information. But why do you think Jamal Adams has not really stuck around recently? Well, a lot of it's injuries, but you don't really see that old school thumper type of safety anymore. Now, a lot of them still do hit hard. A lot of it is the rule changes, targeting, and all of it. But that has kind of changed, right? They want fast guys. They want nuanced guys. They want those Kyle Hamilton, Gazelle thoroughbred types. So, you're not the only one. You're not the only one, Jordan, that's brought this up. And like I said, box safeties still do exist. It's just if you want to play too high, then both of those safeties have to be able to cover. Now, to your point, you said, hey, I'm not talking about him playing safety. You want to see him play star, and you think star would get him closer to that role. True, except if I know Harold Perkins is on the field playing that role, what am I going to do? I'm going to spread him out. I'm going to take him out of the box as much as I possibly can. All right. So if you're going to do that, and you want Harold Perkins to more so stay in the box as that star extra player, what do you have to do? Well, one of those safeties has to come out and guard the slot receiver, and then that other safety has to go middle of the field. All right. Which leaves you open for very explosive plays in the pass game. Okay. But Jordan, it's a great topic. All right. Yeah, Alexander, I mean, there's a lot of different discussions on it. I will say, one thing that NFL teams covet is athleticism and early production. And Harold Perkins has both of those things in ridiculously high number. All right. He was, when he was healthy, the best defensive player his true freshman season in the sport. I don't think, I mean, there are very few players that hit his peak. Now, Will Anderson is one of them, but you get the point. At his peak, there were some saying, hey, if the Heisman goes to the best player, Harold Perkins was the best player as a true freshman. And then obviously you have coaches like Lane Kiffin trying to coach us up. Now, it wouldn't be the first time. Obviously, you had that viral moment with Ed Orgeron. Let's go to John. Follows up here. I agree with Jordan's concept and my point. Other players have to have high IQ situational awareness to adjust to what Perk does. I was going to save this for the end. I'm not going to play the clip because you can go see it for yourself on Twitter. But what I would do if I were Brian Kelly, because this guy played a role in recruiting DJ Pickett. But if I were Brian Kelly, I would play this clip from Patrick Peterson on Cam Newton's podcast about how much film study work he would put in week in and week out to get ready for games. And now I have the good fortune of being friends with Patrick Peterson, and we reconnected in Vegas, and I got to see him at the Super Bowl for a little bit. And he is a pro's pro. And it is ridiculous how much football knowledge he has. So much. And man, he watches a lot of film. He watches a metric F ton of film. And most of the best players do. And so much, if you really listen to what Patrick Peterson is saying, whenever he does an interview or he gets technical, a lot of what he does is he is deducing what the other team could do out of the offensive formation. And he talks about probability. All right. He says, if I know that this receiver is in a +2 or a -2 alignment, and basically, what that means is the distance from where they are on the numbers, right? Where the numbers are painted and stuff like that. At least I think that's what that means. Once again, I'm not Patrick Peterson. I do film study analysis, but I don't know ball like him. He deduces what you could do. from a negative or positive split or whatever formation. And so much of modern defense is that, right? If this player does this, I do that. That's the basis of Palm's coverage, which is, a big Saban thing, right? If the number 2 receiver goes here, I go here. It's one reason if LSU were to hire me as an offensive analyst, I did apply for the analyst position. I don't think I got it. One thing I would do is create a lot more 3-by-1 situations, right? Because the one thing I like about 3-by-1s is there's just so many different things you can do out of that if you're going to play a lot of 11 personnel in particular. Okay. I love that. I freaking love 3-by-1s. So if you were to do that, there's so much that changes for the defensive backs, in particular if you're going to play stubby to that side, all right, which is that's getting into like the whole Saban vernacular. There's different terms for all of it, and basically it's if the number 3 receiver does this, I do that. Okay, so basically, to John's point about football IQ, there is so much processing you have to do as a defensive player. And it's hard because you as a defensive coordinator and as a coaching staff, you have to teach them in the best way possible. All right. You don't want to get too complex because you don't want them thinking too much. And you want them going out there playing fast, playing free, and all that stuff. But at the same time, it is complex. There is a lot of things that you have to process in a very short amount of time, and you have to do so at an extremely fast rate, or else Ryan Williams is busting your ass for a 60-yard touchdown. So that film study that you do, I think is very important because you're able to use formational things that you pick up in film, and you can use probabilities to figure out, hey, if they're in this formation, in particular on first down, I know that there's a high likelihood that they're going to run dagger or whatever. Okay. We need to get PP7. Oh, yeah, he has been on the show, but it was kind of quick. Bullfrog says, who do we think is getting number 7 on offense? I wouldn't give one out. Because who would you give it to? Would you give it to Garrett? I mean, I'd be open to it. If there was someone that you would lean towards getting it, it would be Chris, right? I think Aaron will stay in Uno. I could see Aaron Anderson getting it as well. And then the only other one that would have a shot would be Durham. But I'm fine with letting it go on offense, okay? Or just letting it go all together. I don't know. We should call up Patrick Peterson and say, hey, man, you're the one that started this tradition. Jared's a big Aaron Anderson guy. Anderson wearing number 18. I could see that. I don't think Mekhi Wingo is a reason our defenses weren't that great. CH7. Well, here's what I would say about Chris Hilton getting number 7. Knowing his injury history and knowing what the number 7 has done to some recent recipients of the jersey, I would probably lean towards not going in that direction. Well, I would say Burt Jones was the original 7. He was the first, like, elite number 7. Friend of the channel, Burt Jones. Kidding. I'm not besties with Burt Jones, but his best buddy is one of my best buddies. I've shared that story plenty of times. But I've met Burt a few times. Really nice guy. Love me some Burt Jones. Bullfrog is calling a shot. He said Harlem Berry will wear that number 7 at some point. Jared says 3 more months. LA Mom, I loved Kiffin's comments after Harold Perkins' freshman year. I think you also asked me if I'm going to Clemson. If I were to go to the Clemson game, Haley would have to come with me because she has family out there. We have close friends, one of which is a Clemson supporter, booster. I would love to go to that Death Valley. I would. It's just, man, it's the first weekend of the year. I'm doing a lot more like SEC college football coverage. It is so hard to travel and do all of that. It really is. So I don't know. Now, if you're outside of the state of Louisiana, I highly recommend you check out Fast Draft Fantasy. They're partners on the Power Hour Network. Fantasy drafts that last less than 10 minutes. Sign up, use my promo code Carter. It goes a long freaking way. Once you do one of those drafts, you'll want to do 1,000 of them. Fast Draft Fantasy, where you can draft rookies and win freaking big. But it's not just rookie drafts. They do other drafts as well. Shout out Fast Draft Fantasy. I did 5 fantasy drafts on Fast Draft Friday afternoon. I did enjoy myself. I love drafting. But it literally lasted maybe 30 or so minutes to do 5 drafts. Now that T-Bob is off to bigger and better things, can you get them on the show? Big fan of T-Bob. Did a whole show on Thursday talking about my friendship with Mr. Abear. You got to get T-Bob on the show. I just feel guilty because our live streams go late and he's got such an early morning. But yeah, we should get T-Bob. I'll text him, see if he wants to come on. Obviously, he's in the middle of a move, but yeah, I'm very happy to call him a good buddy and former co-host. And he is going to do wonderful things. And congrats to Matt Flynn getting the co-host chair on 104.5. It shouldn't have been anybody else. Flynn and Hester, it should be good. All right. Here's what we're going to do. Next 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to answer as many questions as we possibly can. If you super chat, we'll keep this going. We now dive into different topics. Obviously, a little bit of a different stream considering, we talk so much softball tonight. But look, I can't do this anymore with the NBA playoffs. They've got to move everything to a 5-game series. Every game 7 sucks. We've had so many lower body injuries happen. Playoff injuries are up. They've got to fix it. All right. Cut it down. Cut down the regular season. Cut down every series to a 5-game series. I have a huge Timberwolves future that I placed back in March. Even with me rooting pretty big for the Timberwolves and Naz Reid, who is the best player on that team, I was pissed that Steph Curry got hurt. Because once he got hurt, the series was over. Once Tatum got hurt, the series was over. Not good. Now, the big LSU story that everybody has 1,000 think pieces about is Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. I'm telling you right now, and I've used this analogy before. I'm talking strictly based on everything non-criminal with this other athlete. All right. But Angel Reese is the Floyd Mayweather of the WNBA and just in general. Angel Reese is one of the best basketball players in the WNBA. All right. But what makes her so interesting is not exactly her style of play. She has a very athletic style of play. She is relentless. Like Floyd Mayweather, when you watched him box, it was not fun. All right. It just was not fun. But he was effective at generating buzz and interest. I can't tell you how many Floyd Mayweather fights I've watched because they were interesting because of Floyd his personality. He was just a star. He had that look. Angel Reese, kind of the same thing. That's just her style of play. But she generates so much interest. It is ridiculous. All right. And she has said, I don't mind playing the villain. The WNBA should, and so many people make a bad comment about Angel Reese and what she said about the WNBA, and that there's more than one player and all that stuff. Yes, it's true that Caitlin is a needle mover. The needle mover. Maybe the biggest needle mover in the history of sports. We're witnessing right now. Making people on a national scale really care about an entire sport. It's Tiger Woods level stuff. But Angel Reese is what's making it interesting, right? It's what's making these discussions. Okay. And I cannot thank Angel enough for that. Like, it is interesting how good she was at LSU. She won the Natty. She won the game versus Caitlin. That really counted. And now she is the second most intriguing player in the WNBA. I'm so freaking excited for Angel Caitlin. I don't think it's like a bird magic dynamic, but it feels like that. All right. It feels like that. So I'm really excited. Angel, you do you. I'm in your corner. Now, as far as the foul is concerned, was it a flagrant foul? No. I don't think it was a flagrant foul. But it was testy. It was testy, and I like that. Okay. Will Alex Atkins be on the field at Clemson? Do you think he'll help call plays? Oh, he is the run game coordinator, so yeah, he'll have a role. He will. Let's go to Jared. Flynn had $50 million in the bank. How'd they talk him into working at 6 a.m.? It is brutal to get up and do radio every single day. It's ironic that I've been doing the YouTube thing. I miss doing a structured daily radio show because it's difficult. It's really difficult to do. All right. Now, the good news is he's going to be doing a show that is heavily produced, right? They have 2 producers in the studio with them every single day. So That's different, right? Where you have to be, you and the co-host, the sole content creators. So Flynn's going to do great. Okay. And that's a good thing, Freddie. It's better for you, the consumer, that the A-listers don't like each other. All right. It's better for women's basketball that Kim Mulkey and Dawn Staley don't like each other. You can have respect for someone else, but between the white lines or between the lines or whatever, you want them to hate each other's guts. But there you go. We'll take a few more here. Anthony holding it down on the book. Let's go. Yeah, I don't think I don't think I want a co-play calling situation because that's what Jake Peets and DJ Mangus did a few years ago. But I would be open to Alex Atkins designing our run game. I'd be open. Let's see. As far as football, I've covered everything that I've wanted to cover tonight. Uh, 11 personnel. 10 personnel is just so rare. It is so rare to see 10. But yeah, like, and by 3-by-1, I don't mean like it could be a tight end to that side and 2 receivers. It doesn't have to be 3 wide receivers. Let's go to Freddie. My thoughts on Cohen Eccles. Interesting player out of Katy, Texas. Played a lot of high school football at different positions, which is what I like. LSU liked what they saw in camp. I always felt he was a year 3 guy, so he's entering year 2, but he will play. He will play for sure. I don't think he'll start though. I had quite a few of you message me about the chicken nugget debate that we had. And then Sam in the Discord said spicy Wendy's chicken nuggets are the GOAT fast food chicken nuggets. I was shocked that none of y'all said Chick-fil-A. Shocked. Let's go to this. Which younger DB, in terms of Spears, Toviano, Woodland? I don't know if I would consider Toviano young, but for the sake of the argument, let's do this. Do you see him making the biggest jump this year? Cajun Dave says my money is on Toviano in that star position. So you have 2 different things that would need to happen for that to happen. The first is Toviano would have to play that position, which they've tried, but he is more so playing safety now. And I think that's where LSU wants him to be. And to me, I never saw him as an outside corner, but desperate times called for desperate measures. And that's the position he played in high school. Now, I don't think out of those 3, Toviano would be the one I would pick. In fact, I could even argue it's the other 2. If I were to choose, I would put Woodland 1, Spears 2, Toviano 3. All have weaknesses, but Man, PJ Woodland is so interesting. I think what makes him the most interesting is that he was the lowest rated out of that group. Obviously, I'm cheering for Spears the most because I think Spears is the best talent out of those three. We'll see. Yeah, I'm telling you, the most I've ever been ridiculed was my Caitlin Clark rant from a few years ago. Me being a fan. But there was more to it than just that. I won't go down that rabbit hole again because it really got people riled the frick up. And that's okay. That has been women's basketball conversation for years now. All right. It's outrage nonstop. People being very defensive, which is crazy to me. It should be. Damn, Arike Agumbawale is so underrated. Sherry Berry, she called her shot with the softball team. This is the Sherry Berry and Skipper cast. Skipper, I don't think has been in here tonight, but Sherry Berry and Skipper, I'm telling you, all year long, they were not blasting me, but saying, "Hey, don't get ahead on the Betarina train." You called that Shiite, Sherry. I mean, she Babe Ruth that thing. And here's the thing, y'all two watch so much softball. Y'all don't want to be right. You want Betarina to win. It's just you guys have seen it, and you said no, Carter. You're gonna have your heart ripped out. Freddie says Joel Rogers is underrated. I could see that. Year two player, played a lot of offense in his high school career. Joel Rogers. I can get down with Joel Rogers. So there you go. Great stream today. We don't do the 90-minute ones. Y'all remember PHL back in the day when I was a young pup, 3-hour streams, 4-hour streams. We knock out a 3-hour, 4 like it was nothing. Nothing. Back in the King Robert days. I remember King Robert, RIP to a legend. Mm. At this point, I just want to get back to the College World Series in softball. Telling Jared, you remember that. Let's go to Corey. Corey might be the last one. Yeah, I think so, Corey. I do. I really do. Terry, the real MVP. You and Skipper. Mm. Next PHO meetup. It's actually we're meeting up the night of the Clemson game. We're all going to rush the field and put our hands on Howard's Rock. That's the next PHO meetup. Now we got to do another one in BR before the season. I kind of want to do that. Go to Zippy's. That's where we've been a few times. I kind of want to. Jared and I were talking about doing one in Mobile for our Bama PHLers. We got quite a few Bama PHLers. Mobile would be lit. We can go under that big tunnel together, right when you go into Mobile and go right under that tunnel together. All right. Next time we will be live is Tuesday. Matthew Brune will join the show. Wednesday, a former SEC staffer who worked for Gus Malzahn and quite a few other SEC programs will join the show. So be on the lookout for that. Okay. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. Shout out to our top super chatters of the evening. Brian, Senor, and Alexander. Jared holding it down on the Venmo. Tonight, we are doing some chicken tortellini. Let's go.